Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome. Welcome to Facebook Live. It is the 9th of February, year 2022. I hope everyone is doing well, and we are going to be out of this winter weather, and everyone is staying warm and safe. I wanted to introduce our panel members that are here. April, who is our psychic and spiritual teacher, is here. Good evening, April. We also have Eileen, who is our mindfulness teacher on the panel, is certified, and she has taken up virtual reality mindfulness sessions as well as one-on-one coaching. So if anybody's interested, she also sometimes leads mindfulness sessions when we do our group meditations. So y'all are more than welcome to join and partake in our group meditations, where Eileen leads us into meditations, as well as during our workshops, she leads a couple of meditation sessions. So thank you, Eileen, for being here. And then Marla is here, who is a fellow group member. Good evening, Marla. And then we're joined by Kelly and Kelly, who are Qigong teachers and spiritual teachers. Good evening, Kelly and Kelly. And then Ken is here as well, who is a fellow group member, part of a core group of meditators. So I was telling April, or I was forewarning her, that today we get started by one of the most creative questions that come from Lakshmi and are pretty tough to answer as well. So I'm going to show y'all it almost is a JPEG, so y'all will have to read the quote. It's a quote by Nisargadatta Maharaj, and then she has questions around it. Let me see. Let me check my screen if I'm ready. Let's see. Okay, here's the quote. You can see the screen, right? The quote is, the memory of the past and fulfilled desires traps energy, which manifests itself as a person. When its charge gets exhausted, the person dies. Unfulfilled desires are carried over into the birth. Self-identification with body creates ever fresh desires, and there is no end to them unless this mechanism of bondage is clearly seen. It is clarity that is liberating, for you cannot abandon desires unless its causes and effects are clearly seen. I do not say that the same person is reborn. It dies and dies for good. But its memories remain, and their desires and fears, they supply the energy for a new person. So here comes the question. The question that she asks is, who is the person? What is the person's link to body? What is desire? And how is it generated? Who is the generator? What is charge? So I'm going to put these questions in the chat. And I'm going to try and put the lines one by one while you're speaking. So April, if you want to get started.
Oh, Lakshmi. Oh, Lakshmi. Oh, my. Who is the person? What is the person's? Oh, man. Well, she's basically talking about the cycle of life, the cycle that we're in of reincarnation. Unfulfilled desires is Well, desires, we could take a couple different ways. We could translate it a couple different ways, but unfulfilled desires, the first thing I thought about was basically the reason that you come back into body, come back into soul, is things that are, are undone, things that you feel that you haven't fulfilled, things that you want to learn, evolve into. So manifest itself as a person. I have to hold myself back because there's so many different ways I could go with this. The desire comes from source wanting to know itself. So the idea here is that source is one. And because source is one, it does not know itself. It knows all. So in order to know itself, and I'm not going to break this down too much, it has to basically split. It has to separate. That separation is us trying to get back to one. And the way to get back to one is these desires, these unfulfilled needs, that each time we go through this cycle, we evolve and we learn and we become closer to the one. And that's the ultimate goal. If I was to wrap it up in a really short way, that's the way that in the bondage, mechanism of bondage, the bondage is that you are on a path back to oneness. Because oneness does not know. It knows all, but it can't experience itself. If it wants to actually experience itself, it has to separate to do that. It has to go somewhere to do that. So here is one of the places it goes to do that, because here we have the positive, the negative, the good, the bad, the duality. So what is the charge? What does she mean by the charge? What is the charge? The charge is the one, the desire to know itself. Is that what you think she means by that?
One of the things I told Lakshmi is he speaks in his native language, and she told me it's Marathi, right? And there's a translator that translates it into English. So lost in translation could be it too, right?
Oh,
because this person may not have the presence power or may not be as consciously evolved as Nisargadatta Maharaj. So as he's translating it, there's some colloquial English that he uses. So it may be the wrong translation as well. So we have to take it that way.
Okay.
So the person... What I think when its charge gets exhausted, the person dies.
Oh, there it is. Okay. I forgot that second part. Yes.
It's almost as like what we were talking about in the past few Facebook Live Q&As. We were talking about if the life force weakens. When the young person, we were talking about Sadhguru saying, if a young person loses his life, they're shot or they get into an accident, then their life force is so vibrant and active that they will turn into ghosts. Their paranormal activity is more available to mediums, right? Because the life force is so intense. So I think when he says when its charge gets exhausted, the person dies, he means the life force weakens so much that the person dies, like the life force withdraws and the person dies.
Yeah. And
That's
the
what it is.
desires to me are the soul's path, are the things, the evolution. Those to me are the desires, the things that the soul still wants to accomplish, still wants to learn and evolve. But ultimately, the goal is to get back to oneness. That is our ultimate goal. Oneness cannot know itself because it is one, it is all. So it has to have experiences. So you can say you know something, but until you actually experience it, you don't actually know it. You can have empathy, you can have sympathy, but until you are actually wearing those shoes, you don't know. And that is the whole purpose of coming here. That's the whole purpose of having desire, of having these lessons, is to come here and actually experience. You take that knowledge and we take it back and you evolve as a soul. So being in the flesh does create desires. So if we want to change the meaning of desires, it does create desires being of the flesh. And it says that there's no end to it unless this bondage, this mechanism of bondage is broken. And actually, ironically, I re-listened to Eckhart's session today where he talks about, I think it was the monk, and the student had been in there for a long time, and the student was saying, I've been here for 2 years and I don't think I've figured it out yet. Give me some advice. And his teacher says, okay, go out and everything that happens, say, thank you, I have no complaints. Thank you, I have no complaints. So again, this is where I am taking this, desires. And I said we could have different definitions of it. When you break the bondage, to me, that's what this means in this phrase. Breaking that, connection to having things be a certain way, or to complaining, or to material items, and just be in the present moment and be grateful for the good, the bad, all of it. Whether you, like, I think Eckhart said, that you're outside in the rain with nowhere to live, or you're outside in the sun. Be thankful for, I have no complaints. Thank you, I have no complaints, right? Being grateful for all of it, appreciating all of it. So that's where I can start with this. But I mean, you obviously, she picked a really, like, you could go on and on and on with this, and we could change the definitions of the words, but this is what I got, right away when I first read it.
Eileen posted something from Lakshmi. Are they talking about this lifetime or past lifetimes?
I think they're talking about both. I think it talks about both. So the way that this is worded, you could translate it into a current lifetime, having current desires, having those desires, the charge gets exhausted, then they're unfulfilled. So you could actually, I could see that in my lifetime currently, or in the past, but also they are talking about past lifetimes as well. This is about the cycle of life. This is what happens. The desires are not fully fulfilled, which is really the evolution, the lessons learned. So then the person comes back into a body and starts over. It's carried over into a new birth. I think it's talking about both.
So who is the person? Is anybody?
It's really anybody.
Every human being.
If we're looking at Earth, the 3D, if we're looking at Earth, then it's all us, yes. But there's other realms and dimensions. But so as far as the Earth concept, yes, it's all people. And what is the person's link to the body? The person's link to the body is coming here and having this experience. We need a vehicle. This is the vehicle in this realm. Right.
Incredible. Thank you. Thank you, April. And to me, it's very difficult to understand desires, but I like what Sadhguru uses as, in his book, Karma as well, he uses the words compulsions and tendencies. And I love that world that every, like Sadhguru in quite a few of his videos says, if that human being, the body was lost, then that soul would move with its compulsions and tendencies. Like right now, the compulsions and tendencies, we can use our intellect to, that's what we use, right? Intellect and the awareness to kind of train the compulsions and tendencies or overcome the compulsions and tendencies. That's what we do through awareness practice. But without that intellect, then the soul just moves with its compulsions and tendencies. So I like that word more than, I know in Bhagavad Gita, they use a word called vasanas, and that vasanas sometimes is translated as desires, but the better word seems to be compulsions and tendencies.
I think like what you just said, Poonam, what it brought up for me is like Kelly's story. And I think we all have that part of the story, but Kelly's story where he said, he tells that he had asthma. So having that condition allowed him to go to the other realms, right? Having those times where he was near death or at death, that allowed, so that it just made me think of that without that condition, would he have, been able to do it as quickly as he did at such a young age? Maybe, perhaps, yes, because that's part of his soul's desire to do this in this lifetime. But we all have those things. Like I didn't have that in my life, but I had, I had the angry father, so I had to judge things from a distance. That gave me the ability to have the psychic ability, right? Because I had to judge who was getting mad when, right? So I think that's part of the compulsions, desires too, for this journey and for the evolution.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, April. Eileen, did you want to say something about this topic? Anything come up? And I'm going to retype everything because I see Caesar has joined. So I'm going to try and copy and paste. Thank you.
I don't really have anything to add. I feel like I need some clarity myself, but thank you.
Kelly and Kelly, thank you, Eileen. Kelly and Kelly, did y'all want to say something? I'm sure y'all have a lot to speak about this, and I'm going to retype everything for Caesar so that he's ready. Thank you.
Gosh, where to start? I did answer Lakshmi in the group chat in terms of part of the question. In terms of like past life, present life, it doesn't matter because everything is in this life. Knowing the past life is a good point of information, but it is not an answer. The answer lies in understanding ego attachment. So the question in terms of desire and perception of the body is very different when you are caught in ego and when you are caught in pain and trauma. It's very, very, very different. When you are actually aware and conscious and have discipline with stillness, desires are very, very different. And especially when you are in stillness, there is no ego attachment. So you can begin to actually understand a soul desire or a heart desire versus an ego desire. So there are different levels of awareness and different levels of reality that have to be understood and that are a progression along the road. The whole thing about who the person is, yeah, I completely agree. It's everyone. It can be anyone. And the person, yeah, again, the translation in English is sort of like, how many dialects are there in India?
Yeah.
And translating a phonetic alphabet that has 56 letters and consonants and stuff like that versus our 26. Yeah, okay. Sorry. What is the person's link to body? That's really interesting because generally when you are in ego, you look down on your body. You don't understand the toolbox that the physical reality of your physical body actually is in terms of being able to feel and process and digest and integrate information physically, because the brain, the actual piece of muscle in our brain, in our skull, doesn't feel. It processes and analyzes and filters information according to our stories, our programs, and our understanding of reality. And it's our actual body that feels the information. So when you are lessening your ego attachments and you are more in stillness and you're more in being present with yourself, being aware of what you are feeling in your body is paramount. So the connection to the body or the physical body is really important to understand that there are differences. Again, when you are in ego, when you are in fear, when you are in pain and you're traumatized and you resist actually connecting with the physical present moment, versus when you are in stillness, when you have stepped through the trauma, through the pain and the fear, it's a completely different level of information that you can access. And this is really important to understand, that it's not the types of information that you can access and process are not the same. They're not the same as when you start out on your journey and you're in ego and you like think you have the best idea ever, you know, like build a better mousetrap and everyone will like beat a path to your door. It's not the same when you step into stillness and you have that discipline and awareness. Information is completely different and desire is completely different, because when you have a feeling with no ego attachment, it is a completely different physical sensation. And the evolution of actually being aware of your physical information is part of the process that happens along the way. So what is a person's linked body? That would be very interesting to understand where that person or the perception of the body actually lies in terms of the cultural programming and stories.
Yeah.
And the societal and also the family karma, as in the family stories that we've grown up with about our physical bodies. Because I grew up in a family that has, you know, diabetes and asthma and allergies and all these other conditions. And I don't have them. I don't have them anymore. And I grew up with the asthma and the bronchitis. And and April, is a very, very excellent point bringing up my asthma, because it's true. If I didn't have my asthma, I would not have paid so much attention to my body. And I started giggling because I realized, oh yeah, well, what would have happened? Said, guess what? I've got a backup plan.
Had your two
missing
missing
my
fingers.
fingertips that basically caused me, you know, chronic pain for the first 20 years of my life on top of the asthma. So the universe was going, nope, we're going to put in redundancies and make sure this happens. Like, so I was kind of laughing at myself there. So again, I have, you know, from a very young age, major substantial need, not even desire, just straight up need, no questions asked, where I have to pay attention to my body, or I have to pay attention to the stress and the tension and what my mind is doing. I have no option. There is no option. So this is sort of like rolls into the other question of what is desire and how is it generated? Who is the generator? These are excellent things to be aware of, and questions. Who and why? Like, why do I feel this way? Who is speaking this story? What part of me is asking about this story, or why is this story, you know, so, you know, front and center? And again, desire is different when you're in stillness, when you're aligned with self, and when you are present with yourself and being emotionally responsible. It's completely different. Communication is completely different.
Yeah.
So the generator, again, you have to understand whether or not it's the ego, whether or not it's the story, whether or not it's trauma, whether or not it's pain, or whether or not it's conditioning, cultural, you know, societal, or whatever. Asking the question why is seriously the most important thing you can ever do for yourself. And what is the charge?
What is charge?
What is charge? Not exactly sure what is meant by that.
Yeah, because I was wondering if that was a translation thing that I'm not quite understanding what that like.
Yeah.
What they meant, but you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you want to.
Well, again, it boils, you know, it just goes back to, I'm just going to end up repeating myself. It goes to, you know, what understanding, the charge in any situation, always goes back to, where's the desire coming from? Where is that ego attachment coming from? Is there ego attachment happening? Am I actually in stillness? How do I feel? Why do I feel this way? Who is telling me I'm feeling this way? And why am I listening to that story? Or am I listening to a story? And what does, the whole energy of it feel like, and why?
Do I have anything?
Do you have
I'll
anything?
try. I have a few things. I don't know. This is very interesting. So I'm sort of interested a little more to listen. I don't know, because I was like, wow, these are deep questions.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to.
But when I was thinking about the first one about who is the person, I thought, well, the first thing I thought of is that this is who I am this time. And now at this point, I went through a period of time where I was very aware of a lot of past lives that I had. And I thought, wow, that's so important. And it really isn't, because everything needs to be here and aligned in this moment.
Yeah.
So whatever I've done in another time is just to remind me that you've been here before, you've learned things. And I know that a lot, I'm not sure that I used to feel that way, that I came back because there's more I had to learn. And obviously that I do think that's true. But I also think that there are things that, like, I've been also very aware of what timelines I've chosen to be a part of and to come back. And so when you become aware of that I've made choices specifically in other times,
Like at a soul level.
it's like, well, what did I come here this time? Like being present and learning that, and then to learn who I am this time, but also then to unlearn all of that as well.
Yeah.
So we want to unlearn everything that we think we are, and then return to what, right? Like who are we this time? And then that kind of goes into question number 2, like a link to the body. Well, your body is a receiver and a transmitter. So what messages are you receiving, either from yourself or other people? Are you taking other people's truth as your own? Are you believing, what are you believing? And then also, what are you putting back out because of that, right? It goes back and forth. So that's why I think the link to our physical body is so important. And then the only thing I really had to add with desire is that often the ego will desire things, and then we fall into despair and we swing back and forth because we didn't get something. And our ego thinks that, well, we should have had this, or we should have had this life, or we should have had this job or something, instead of just looking at it as an experience, right? That, well, I tried and I didn't get it, or what can I learn out of it? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's sort of the way I look at that, that's swinging back and forth. And then I'm not sure how to answer number 4. So, because we're all, electricity, we're all like vibration, we're frequencies. So, yeah.
The charge part, I think I answered, because he clearly states when its charge gets, I lost the.
And Bianca is also raising a really good point that there's a lot of duality. There's a lot of limited 3D
in the questions.
In the questions. There's a lot of duality in the questions, a lot of limited 3D perception of reality in the questions. So this is sort of,
we read what
she wrote. Bianca wrote, there's a lot of duality in each of the questions. The one of charge brings the ideas of both chosen responsibility and the energy that is part of our own vibration, creation, connection to source.
But the question about charge comes from this passage where he says, when its charge gets exhausted, the person dies. Unfulfilled desires are carried over into the birth. So it is correct that the charge is the life force of that person.
Right.
That's the electromagnetic frequency of that person, like a battery charge. It's getting weakened and the person dies. Unfulfilled desires. So when he dies, whatever is the remaining karmic content in that person carries over to the next birth. Like Eckhart says, right, he's trying to burn up all his karma so that he doesn't have to take another birth. That's what Eckhart talks about himself. So that's what he's trying to do, is not leave any unfulfilled desires that he has to carry. And that's why he says true detachment is non-identification with thought formations. The moment we disidentify from, let's not be reborn into the next thought form and the next thought form and the next thought form, and that'll stop the cycle of desires.
Yep. No, in Qigong, we call this original Qi. The Qi that we were born with before, or that we have before we choose the parents and are born to the parents that we do. Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you, Kelly and Kelly. That was pretty expansive. Amazing. Thank you for that response. Marla, you ready with a response on these? You want to dissect any one of those statements?
Holy cow. Wow. Well, I did have some things come to me that might be relevant, especially in light of translation issues here and what these various terms mean. It makes me language, because I think then I would get it better. Anyway, who is the person? I'll start with the questions. Who is the person would be my mind? The life form that we have decided in this life to take. So the soul decides, okay, in this life I want to, that's going to require a certain personality, if you will. I'm losing how to express this, but I could use an example because I kept relating it back to what I think mine might be. Okay, so my person in this life is mother. And I'm not talking about the limited role of mother. I'm talking about mother being. Okay, my person's linked to the body would mean that I have a female body that's going to have children. I know I'm oversimplifying, but let's keep on with this here. What is desire? The desire would be, and I would almost think of that as drive. And that's similar to what you said, Poonam, about, you said compulsions and
Tendencies.
Very much like a drive, which is like a push of energy. It's like what's moving you. Okay. And so my movement in this life is, I believe, to expand and heal the concept and being of motherness in our world. And for me personally, that is to become, understand, and know and experience healthy mothering. And that's the desire then, generated by the soul before birth to experience that. The generator would be the soul. The charge is the energy to do that. And I know that's really oversimplified, but if I look at the rest of it, self-identification with body, yes, my body was successful in some ways and not so successful in other ways in that particular purpose, that particular soul's purpose in this life. Creates fresh desires. Sure, things happened in my journey as a mother that made me move on to develop others. Okay, so I had one baby die halfway through a pregnancy. So now I really want another baby. And then it was really hard to get pregnant. So how bad do I want that? Okay, so I'm tying it to my own experience just because I need that in order to try to understand this. And there were challenges all along the way in this. One of the biggest being that I did not have good mothering. I did not have a good model. Had I had a great model, this would have been a pretty easy life, but it wasn't. There were lots of challenges. And Self-identification with body creates ever fresh desires. Yes. And now with my new role as a great grandmother, I have a new fresh desire here, and that is to mother both my great granddaughter and my granddaughter and my daughter in our roles with this child. So my concept of being a mother has been expanded in this life. There's no end to them unless this mechanism of bondage. Well, there was a real bondage, has been, and probably still is, a real bondage to healing my own injuries of being mothered. And that doesn't, let me see if I can say this. There was a point where my ego needed to be the perfect mother. And the perfect mother, I had to see with clarity that that was an ego desire, not a soul desire. So I felt like trying to figure this out as I say this, so it's getting kind of muddled. I hope it's helping. As my mothering roles and duties and challenges in this life are fulfilled, the charge diminishes, the charge being the energy, the electrical energy, that goes away because there's no desire, no drive anymore. Okay, my energy is diminishing, it's going to go away, it's going to die. If there's something I'm hanging on to, karmic that I'm hanging on to, it'll go over into the next life, along with perhaps whatever I choose for that life. And it really helps me to look at it this way, because what I can see is that this is on a soul level. This is totally on a soul level. I had no idea when I was a child that I would be a mother or want to be a mother. I didn't even think about wanting children. So it's all just very fascinating, and I'm really appreciating this question. I'm not sure if I answered it, but I think the desire is generated either by your spirit, soul, or ego, and it can be either one, and you have to discern as you go through life which one it is, and then get clarity, and then be able to move and lose that charge if it's ego charge. Yes, there's a duality in this, and that really muddies the water for me. But I like what Bianca said. Yes, like a candle burning away. And being in the last quarter of my life, I can see that candle burning. I can feel and sense my energy diminishing. I still have the same quality of desire, the same amount of desire. I hold that baby and I want the same thing for that baby that I've wanted for each one of my babies and my grandchildren, and for babies in this world, and for the babies of the parents that I taught in parenting classes. But my energy to provide it, my energy to fulfill that is diminishing. And as I can let go of that, then I can move forward freely, I feel. If I can't let go of that, it's an unfulfilled desire that's going to hang on and probably complicate my future growth. So I don't know how much that helps, guys, but that's what I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marla. That was amazing, that the way you drew that analogy. Other than the fact that, would mothering be a desire? Or mothering is a biological, just because we are female, mothering is a natural part of being in a female body. So mothering would not be a desire. Desires would be something like the compulsion and tendency that a human being has would be something like the compulsion to be angry, the compulsion to have resentment, the compulsion to have complaining, like be a complainer all the time. Right? So
If you think about it in a negative way, yes. But I'm thinking about a desire. Mothering is a limited way of thinking about a desire to nurture, a desire to foster growth, a desire to nurture a human being, another soul. I mean, God is the ultimate. To me, God is the, perfect. If there is a perfect mother, perfect parent, God knows exactly what we need and how to help us get it and teach us how to do it. And that's what our mothering role, that's what I see as mothering role. So that's why I couched it in those particular terms. It's almost like we live out our desire in this limited experiential world. We try to achieve it in this particular world.
But what I wanted to give a little bit of perspective on was desire is not just one little thing that I desire to be this one thing, mothering. Desires, how many signature patterns, how many karmic patterns can we have in our own? Like, I know I had the compulsion to have jealousy for my brother as we were growing up, right? So jealousy was a pattern in me. What these desires and compulsions and tendencies, the way Eckhart would phrase it, he would call it the past conditioned patterns. What were our past conditioned patterns that we picked up from the culture that we grew up in, the family we grew up in? One, being born as a human being, we were born with certain compulsions, conditioned patterns, and then now superimposed on our soul were what did our mother do to us, our father do to us, our teachers do to us, the city we grew up in, the country we grew up in, all the impressions that were made on our soul. And so now that became like a whole different vessel of compulsions and tendencies within us. Like I can say, and I've talked about it during Facebook Live, because I come from a Brahmin family, this compulsion to separate ourselves or say, I'm better than you, you are untouchable, so you need to stay away from me, right, was very prevalent as I was growing up. So how many people grow up with another person is not to be allowed, or I don't want to be around that person. So those are all the signature patterns, karmic patterns that we are all exposed to. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say is the compulsions and tendencies. I know Ken has something that he talked about during the Sunday group meditations about codependency. You want to talk about that, Ken? That would be the one thing that I wanted to stress on, since she asked about body. Here it says self-identification with body creates ever fresh desires, and there is no end to them unless this mechanism of bondage is clearly seen. So when we say self-identification with body, it's not actually, he does not actually mean the body, the physical body as such. It's self-identification with any thought formation. It creates more desires, right? A body may have, generally, a body may have desires, right? Food addiction. Now the body is forcing us to eat more and more food, or alcohol, or smoking, or drugs, or whatever the addiction may be. So that's one, unless there's a mechanism that can break that bondage, and we can clearly see it, see the compulsion, that we have a compulsion to eat, or we have a compulsion to clean. We have an obsessive compulsive desire to keep organizing the world, right? My world should be so perfect, right? My tip top, like from my head to the toe, I need to be tip top. I need to be perfect. So look at the body creating so much desire or compulsion, right? You want to talk about that, Ken? Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. It's going to fit in. Because I really, looking at all this, and boy, I'm like, who is the person? And to me, the person, it's the soul that came in, but then the person is playing out the different roles. And I can even think of my past lives. I can think of how they're all interconnected. I can think of my relationship with my mother, and then realizing why I came here. I definitely came here to work on my emotions. And I can look at everything, just like we're talking about Kelly with what he went through, and everybody else talked about different things that they went through. And I'm realizing that this whole idea that our spirit is all one. And how are we healing those particular aspects of ourselves is when we start to see the light, is when we start to have the presence power. Other than that, I want to be stuck in my body. I want to be stuck because my body isn't strong enough on its own to work through the compulsions, to work through all the past traumas and everything else that has happened. And then I can even understand what my mother was holding on to. She wasn't able to give me what I needed. And the only way I'm going to be able to get what I need is to surrender to source. So it's funny how I'm looking at all these questions and I'm like, oh my God, they're related so deep into our being and our soul. And then realizing that my natural instincts were clean when I was born, but boy, they got warped through my programming. And then all the different parts of me and how I played out. And just like you were saying, Poonam, about, you know, whether being a perfectionist, whether being overeating, myself, alcoholic, whatever addiction we may have or compulsion we may have, it was generated through what we needed to work through. But we got our needs met, but they were warped, but we still had them met. So I feel like we're here to really untangle all that. I'm seeing so clearly, let's see the questions again. So the desire, my human desires, and I realize that, boy, there's some of my desires of, I call of the flesh, or of different things that I've done, on how I played out different things. And I'm going through some stuff now where if I didn't have the tools, I would slip and do things over again. And if I didn't have this presence power, if I wasn't with other like-minded people, and to have this understanding, it's amazing how I can actually be above it in the presence power and say, we're going to get through this together. I can feel it. And that goes into the charge. I feel like the charge of energy, and we were just talking about codependence. I was codependent all my life and didn't know it. But how I played out different things, now I can feel it. I can be around people that I know are codependent. Even in the group that I'm in, people are like, you're different. You're different. What's going on? I can feel it. I can feel a shift in my perception or my way of being where I'm like, oh my God, I definitely feel the presence power. I mean, that is like, oh my God, I feel like my heart is like, thank you, thank you, thank you. So it's just amazing how much is being healed with what I want to call the charge. Because the charge that I need, my magnetism will go toward what I need to learn from. And if it is a codependent, if I haven't worked through it, guess what? I'm going to go hang out with codependents. Same thing with alcoholics, or same thing with whatever. And then now I'm hanging out with all you, and we're all in presence. So, and I can feel it, and I can see it, and I can understand it. So something about the charge, and then you can just feel this blanket or this energy. And then all my life, I was feeling things I didn't have any idea what they were because fear was blocking it. I couldn't see it. All I kept doing was repeating the same behaviors, the same patterns. So now it's just giving me a whole different understanding with the clearer I get and the deeper that I go into that healing energy. So was there anything specific that when you talked about the codependence, when you wanted me to say, Poonam?
I just wanted to bring it up as that's another compulsion, right? You fulfill me, the egoic wanting that Eckhart talks about.
That was, yeah.
You complete me.
Right. And
Right.
I could, right. And what it was, it all goes back to, I needed that from my mother and father growing up. That was a part of me that didn't get filled. So it was still had its antenna up looking for it, even as being the adult. And then how I played that out, in the different emotions, the anger, the frustration, the hostility, the love bombing, whatever it was, now I'm like, oh my God, I can even look at my alcoholism, because the alcoholism was actually mixed with codependence. So I didn't know how to deal with any of that stuff. So I just wanted to drown myself. I just wanted to numb myself. And there's so many different ways in order to do that. So it's just amazing how so many things, the dots are coming together. And that wanting is all ego. I want, and not realizing underneath the surface is where I needed to go to see that's what was manifesting. It wasn't the surface. So I feel real good because now I can listen to Kelly and I can say, I know everything he's saying now. I can understand. And I'm like, it's so incredible. Both Kellys, both of you. So, and everybody, I'm like, how fast this is happening. I feel like I'm in a jet plane and I'm taking off into a higher level of consciousness. And I feel like I've grown more in the past 6-7 months in ways that are like, who am I? I really love this guy, so it's just something where it's just miraculous. I'm ecstatic over it. So thank you.
Beautiful. Phenomenal. Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you for that example. So that is another desire or off the body compulsion is human contact, right? We keep saying, mother, come fulfill me. Father, come fulfill me. And then that translates to partner, come fulfill me, come fulfill me. I need you. I want you. I need you. The clingy, I need you. And then we are like constantly texting them, where are you? Why are you not here? What's going on with you? And if they don't answer back, we go, oh, maybe they met with an accident. All that desire after desire, compulsion after compulsive behavior, right? One thing leads to the other. And we don't even realize we are from one thought formation to another thought formation. We are reincarnating.
Absolutely. And
right.
If I could say something about the mothering, and there's something that, and I realized with my own mother and a lot of other women or mothers that have children of alcoholics especially, is that they didn't stop mothering. And there's a time when the mother's got to say, that's it. because what happens to that particular person becomes enabling. And so,
Oh, beautiful.
and the mother keeps trying to love, but what is it? My little boy or this or that. And what it is, it's not a little boy, and you don't keep mothering. You've got to be able to leave and let that little boy grow up, because he's not a little boy anymore. And that happened with my youngest brother. My mother, there's 6 boys, and the youngest one got enabled and spoiled. And we're like, what are you doing, Ma? And she couldn't see it. It was like her boys were her life. But the last one got spoiled rotten. And so that's where I really learned about the mothering aspect, how it can really be doing a lot of damage than good. And that isn't love. That was really selfishness and self-centeredness on the mother, having a need met that was warped. So anyway,
And the compassion that we can have for our mothers in that aspect, Ken, is because their role is so null and voided, right? They're nothing in this society. Look at that mother. Step into the shoes of that mother. She had a job. She had a job, right? But it may not have meant, like, she's not a CEO of something. She doesn't have a title, right? She has a kind of a job.
Mm-hmm.
But then she's deriving her sense of self from these kids, these sons. And now one is failing. And then the role, that identification, again, back to the desire and compulsion, the compulsion to identify. And that is what he's saying. Self-identification with the body creates another desire. So that identification with my mothering role, and now I'm going to, this is my 5th child or 6th child or 8th child, and now I'm going to spoil them because I cannot let go of that mothering role.
And exactly.
I'm deriving myself on how successful I am as a human being from how successful this kid is. And because this kid is failing, now I'm feeling all kinds of disrespect and like self-esteem is hurt, right? That I'm not good enough, that my child is suffering, right? I did something as a mother, not realizing that soul is leading its purpose. That soul is come with its own tendencies and compulsions, right? This is so important. I mean, this is a beautiful lesson as well, that each soul, how many of the grandkids, great-grandkids we may have, right? Even the great-grandkid is going to come with its own compulsions and tendencies, no matter how much your mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, that child, that child has its compulsions and tendencies. Its soul has come here to learn its lessons. So it's going to act and behave according to its compulsions and tendencies. The best thing we can do for this world is teach them presence power very early on, right? If we can teach them presence power, then that child, that baby will learn that how can I transcend my compulsion and tendency? And that's what he's saying. It is clarity that is liberating, for you cannot abandon desire unless its causes and effects are clearly seen. Unless we can see, where does my codependency arise? Where does my jealousy arise? Where does my rage arise? Where does my resentment arise? Unless I can see that, I will not understand its causes and effects, and it won't dissolve. And that's what even Eckhart offers, right? Look at your conditioned patterns and dissolve them. And the moment you dissolve them, you're just pure luminous light. And that's what we need to teach our children and grandchildren, which our parents never taught us. So thank you so much. Grateful to you, Ken, for bringing that up. It's beautiful. So Caesar, who is one of our normal panel members, is here. He's our medium he's a channel, right, Caesar? And I don't know if you understood the question. I posted it. She has, this is a quote, and I'll share my screen again and show you the quote. If I can. bring it up. Let's see. Can you see the screen, Caesar? There you go. This is the quote from Nisargadatta Maharaj, and this was a question. So you can take any of these, Caesar, and I'll put it in the chat and dissect any of the statements, because each one of us, April took one, Kelly and Kelly have taken some. Everyone has spoken around something. Go ahead, Caesar. You're on mute, Caesar. We cannot hear you. Sorry about that. There we go.
Wasn't clear. I was gonna start throwing sign language up there. Who is the person? The person is the space that encapsulates the deep I am. Is there a person? Is there really a person? Segueing right into the next one, what is the person's link to the body? Well, I think everybody touched on it pretty good. You know, the identification. We know the body is not the person. The body is, you know, the boundaries in space that stop light, that create this form of whatever we are, goop, thrown together. Like the desire, that's a good one. So the desire, I seen somewhere up there, and it was just here and gone, but mentioned, you know, from past lives, unfulfilled things, and basically saying it turns to trapped energy. And how true could that be? I think it's very true. To piggyback off what you was just saying before I forget, how wouldn't it be great to raise our children starting now, knowing what we know, and keeping the momentum going right from source, instead of allowing them to be conditioned with the smoke and mirrors, you know, the veil that covers up the deep I am, that, you know, we lose through the mental noise and things that people put into our subconscious, you know, in the first 7 years of our lives. And then we spend the rest of our lives trying to figure it out, when it was so clear from birth. We knew more, you know, before the age of 5 than we probably will ever know again. Yet we didn't have the capacity to, well, maybe we did have the capacity, because I think there was a whole lot of no mind, no thinking going on, you know, in the infant years. You know, what does a baby really think about? If you ever sat there and watched an infant, you know, especially in the first couple of weeks, and you could just observe. I mean, if you know, put it in that type of a way, as far as observing an infant at birth, for the first, 48 or 36 hours, you are no different today as the person than the infant was at birth while you're observing that infant. Because if you fall into a deep state of presence while observing an infant, a child, that whether yours or not, probably so, and then first, everybody that has children will relate to this. When you just gaze off into your baby's eyes and you just hold them and you stare and you wonder what's going on in that little brain of his or her, and you just become one. It's like you just kind of meld with that baby, and everything, the world just stops. And there's no thought, there's no negativity. The gratitude is through the roof. The vibrations are equally high on both ends. The desires are not, at least not recognized or realized at that point. And I caught what you were saying about how we carry them over if things unfulfilled, the tendencies and the compulsions and stuff. And I get it. Very true. But I try not to have desires today. And when they do come about, I try to question them. And where is it coming from and why? And I know desires happen, on this plane through contrast, but I think what you were saying or what the question brings about is much deeper than just the simple desire of I want. I think it goes more to the, on a whole nother plane, not a mental plane, of the unfulfilledness from perhaps a past lifetime. And yes, we come here to learn. When do we stop? When the, when that karmic action is pretty much dissolved, like you were saying, how Eckhart's trying to bring himself to a state to dissolve that. How beautiful. Let's see here. What is it desired? How is it generated? I think everybody touched on that pretty well. I don't think I have anything to add to that. Who is the generator? The same person that is the observer. Going back to that deep I again, the deep I am. That empty space that encapsulates this body that somehow stops light through matter. And we just call it that. That is it's a space we occupy. We are that space. In fact, we are more that space than we are that body. And I think it was Eckhart that said we are 95% empty space. If you broke down the cellular level, each cell and organ is, am I right in saying this? Was it Eckhart that said, I think it was 90 to 95% empty space, what we are?
Deepak says that.
Deepak too.
I don't know, maybe Eckhart did, but it's Deepak. And I think
Okay.
Joe Dispenza says it.
So we know that's a fact then. If all three of the gentlemen are telling us that we're 95% empty space, I'll take that to the bank. And that's who we are. We are that empty space. We are the shimmering light outside of this body. We are that light, as the observer, the generator, procrastinator, the wanderer, the desirer. We're all that. But it all takes place in the empty space of nothingness. And that is mostly what we are. I mean, we are essentially a mere thought, which brings us back full circle to the desire and how we got here. And what is the charge? I think you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, Poonam, about, our life light, our life energy. and how when we grow older and our body starts to relinquish some of the greatness that it once possessed, and we start feeling it, or then some ailments happen. I fully believe that is our life energy dwindling away, and it's necessary, just like nature, to take its place. Unless somebody comes and chops down the tree, that tree is going to grow to a certain point, and then eventually begin to fade away. So many people think that, we are in a nonstop, continuous state of dying. Perhaps true from the time we're born. I mean, are we really just like, the second hands are constantly moving forward? But I know that things are either growing or they're dying, one or the other. So just in nature, as a tree would grow until it reaches its precipice and it's, I guess the tipping point, it would begin to die. And same thing as this charge that I think they speak of, is that energy. It is, beginning with the momentum that you carry on from source when you enter this plane, this world of form. And you bring that same energy that you were prior to this. That never changes. Different person, sure. Same soul, I believe so. The same energy, sure. Different continuities and different paths, okay. What is charge? Charge is just that. Charge is the energy that makes us up. That is what we are. Of course, in conjunction with the I guess you can say the natural desire right from birth. I mean, we are all born with the desire to know the $64,000 question: why we're here? What is God? What is life? What is our purpose? I think these are things through conditioning over the years before we turn the corner to shift to want something more. We've all reached a point at some age in our lives that we stopped doing the things we did and our desires changed and we wanted more. We wanted to know, okay, I'm getting old, the fun's over, the party's over. Let's get to living this life. And what is this life really about? And what am I supposed to be doing? And then you start seeking on a higher level. And that's where we say, welcome to your journey. That's when things change. And that's when you begin to really, truly live, I think. Because now there's meaning to everything that you do, but yet everything is meaningless. You start realizing things like that and what was important in your life to that point, that brought you to the realization of what does anything mean? What is important? And you come to realize that nothing you've done really meant hardly anything at all. I mean, at the end of the day, it's probably ego that says, I want to leave my mark on this world. I want to be remembered as just that or the other thing. For a lot of people, they just want to have an impression on somebody to hopefully get them going in the right direction and provide them maybe, a little compassion along the way that might make them, rekindle their flame, charge their energy force up a little bit when it seemed to diminish. Sometimes people lose their spark along the way, and it's all mental stuff that does that. I don't, very rarely is it, coming from a place of presence that you can slip into a depression. You think that would be very hard, to be a victim, so to speak. If you're in a state of presence, I can't really see that possible. Anything's possible. But I think it's important. Momentum is what I like to concentrate my life on today, is when speaking of the charge. And if things don't feel right in my life, I know I've got to shift the momentum in some way to get that grateful, high flying vibration that I've come to know and love. And it starts the second you open your eyes in the morning. If you're conscious of the energy, the vibrations that you're emitting, because you know you're going to attract back just that. And if you don't, well, we're here to tell you you're gonna. So it's important, the moment you open your eyes, when you're just feeling, everybody always has this thing for Monday. It's Monday. Every day Saturday in my world. I don't even know what day it is. I only know it's Wednesday because we do this Facebook Live and I get a little ding on my phone that says it's Wednesday. You got a Facebook Live tonight. If it wasn't for that, I probably wouldn't know what day it is. But yeah, it starts off in the morning. So make sure your charge is vibrating high and you feel good. And if it's not, do something to make it. Choose to make it feel good. And carry that charge, that momentum, throughout your life as long as you can. Just milk it. Just milk the living daylights out of it. And run with that, and you'll accomplish great things along the way, and you'll be able to help people and things and situations. And if you want to leave a stamp on this earth, on this world while you're here, that's one good way to do it. Be remembered for the bringer of light that you guys all are. Everybody has this compassion to help people, and none of us would be here, obviously. And I know. A lot of you guys, on the panel do it at a high level, whether you know it or not. And there's a lot of gratitude that comes with that. If you guys all only knew about how many people you guys really affect. April, I know you do it almost for a living. Poonam, you bring greatness to this place every day. Kelly, you guys, man, hardcore path. And you live it, you breathe it. Ken, welcome to your journey, baby. It's awesome. Marla, I see you've a thing or two about a thing or two to it. It's just all great. Hi, Red Cloud. I see your name up there, but I don't see it. But so we're all just trying to, figure this thing out and help others along the way. And by helping others, we also help ourselves. So I don't know how I got off straight. I think it maybe came from the charge, but I'll just leave that there.
Beautiful. So I'm going to look up one thing you said was about trapped energy. Where was the trapped energy? Oh, the memory of the past, unfulfilled desires traps energy which manifests itself as a person. The memory of the past, unfulfilled desires traps energy. So I think what he means by that is the memory of the unfulfilled desires traps energy, because everything that, like thoughts and emotions, if you look at what Nature of Personal Reality said, that each thought, each emotion is created from a sound, an invisible sound, an invisible light. So that is the memory pattern. So when we have a memory of the past, like if you are holding a memory, and I use the example of envy, that I was very jealous of my brother, right? That memory of the past, unfulfilled desire in the sense that I continue to reincarnate situations that are filled with jealousy, right? I go to a school where I'm jealous of my schoolmates, classmates, right? If somebody's getting higher, like I'm perfect scores, but somebody else, maybe one time I didn't get perfect scores and the other person did, I'm feeling jealous. So that memory of the past, unfulfilled desire, is written as memory, which is karmic memory, and which manifests itself, and that karmic memory manifests itself as a person. So thank you. So I wanted to bring that up. That's where you agree with that, Caesar? Right? With that analysis? Okay.
Yeah, that makes absolute perfect sense. Logical. Logic makes sense indeed.
Beautiful. Thank
Who said
you.
that? Is that's totally?
This is Nisargadatta Maharaj. I don't know if you remember, even Eckhart has talked about him quite a few times.
Yeah.
Jack Cornfield and Eckhart have a conversation in where I think Jack Cornfield went visited Nisargadatta Maharaj. So this is like an English translation of something that he would have said. And Lakshmi is asking these questions. When you read it, you can't really make it out, and we are dissecting it for
awesome.
her.
Cool. Awesome. How fun.
Thank you. Thank you. So April, did anything else, did you look at the statements all over again, and did anything else come up for you that we need to discuss, that we may not have discussed?
Well, there was a few, there was several statements where people brought up different points of view. I don't know that there's anything we haven't discussed. And each one of us took kind of a different view, a different way of looking at it, a different way of interpreting, which is awesome, because then we get the full spectrum. We get, all the ideas that would go into this. And there's just so many little points that were made, like Marla was talking about the mothering. And of course, that brings up a thing for me because I have so many children and grandchildren. And, and we talked about, Poonam, how I didn't have a really good mom. And for me, that was one of my goals, one of my charges was to be a good mom. But it was also an ability that I was kindly born with. I mothered my brother as a child. So it was an ability I was born with. But I still always wanted to be a good mom, even though momming came natural for me. On top of being a Cancer. So apparently I'm also a mom sign. I'm like that nice water sign, right? So I just thought it was all interesting. Ken had a really interesting perspective. And then, of course, Caesar always brings us back around to intention, which also has to do with the charge, the desires, all of it, your intention is, and I think that that's one of the things too, is that when you come here, you're not aware. The job is to remember, but your soul had an intention when it came here for this time. And like Ken said, our programming kind of gets in the way, but actually then the programming falls perfectly in line with the intention. So it circles back around to falling back in line when you make peace with it. There are many people that, I talk to, and I've been in this space in my life where I'm like, why did that have to happen? And I don't see a reason for that to happen. Like, don't you think you could have taught me that without having to do it that way? Like, I have totally been there. I have got there many times. I still get there at times. Even though I'm spiritual, I'm still human. You have to be human. You have to come and be a person, because again, I can't really learn if I don't have that full experience. And I have to come in without all the knowledge. And I have to come in not remembering everything, or I won't be able to have the full experience. And when you can take those issues, those trials, tribulations, all the things that you've struggled with all the desires, all the temptations, whatever you want to call them, and you can make peace with them, then that is when you get out of the trap of the mechanism. You get out of the trap of the cycle, in a sense. And that is personally my goal. And whenever I have a big emotion, I just went through a period of some awesome people sending me some energy, and it threw me into like another dark night of the soul. And I'm looking at myself going, Jesus, like seriously, I'm supposed to be the teacher here. Like what? But because I am human, I don't get excluded. And you have to process it. And when you do that, when you go through it and you process it and you make peace with these, then you get to move forward and you can see, oh yes, this had to happen. Oh yeah, it had to happen again and again. Yep. Okay. So when you do that process, and so I don't know that, I don't know when the process ends. I don't know that we get out, because from the things I have studied, you don't get out. You just start a new one. Even if you get back to one, bam, you're just like, really? And my whole question starts with, why did you need to separate in the first? I'm going to the one. And I am saying, dude, why did you need to separate? Why couldn't we just be one? Let's just be, right? It doesn't work that way. I get it. I'm being facetious on purpose, but it really doesn't end. It's more about creating peace with what you have learned, what you've experienced with the cycle, with all of it. And I think Caesar said it, but I think Kelly said it. The one who's asking these questions, the one that wants to know. And I have been learning more and more. I've been shoved forward and I'm learning more things, different things. And it's because it's the one who's asking. It's the observer that's asking. That's the charge. That's the direction. That's the motivation. And it will always for eternity be the motivation. It's the one that is forever the curious. It just hit me like curiosity kills the cat. Like it's the curiosity that will never end. So I think these are awesome questions. She asked the deep questions, but the ultimate answer is yes, we're on a path. Yes, we're learning. Yes, you have a charge, you have an intention, and that will always continue. And the job is to make peace with that. Whether you make peace with that through yoga, you make peace with that through making pasta, you make peace with that, however you do that, but find that present moment and find that peace.
Beautiful. Thank you, April. Kelly and Kelly, did y'all want to dissect any more of this statement, since there was a lot?
Short.
Okay, I'll
Short
do my
answer.
best to be short.
Short answer.
Going through conceptual frameworks such as this, like we're doing, is really, really important. This is basically what a Sangha, what a Buddhist community does. This is how a Buddhist community trains its members to understand the concepts of reality that Buddhism espouses. This comes from the Jain tradition. This comes from the various ancient traditions along the way. Regardless of which culture, there's always this type of process within a spiritual community. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why I really enjoy doing the panel, is to actually discuss and to share. Everything's about refinement. Everything's about understanding the ego attachment and disassembling that attachment and refining our ability to be present. But that's what it all boils down to. We can talk day in, day out and postulate. And the question as to why do we separate from the one which is always a great question because
I'm going back to management.
let's unpack that one. Yeah. No, it's
Taking this up with management.
It's like, where's your supervisor? Come on. There's a fly in my spaghetti.
Yeah.
What's going on? You know, it's a game. There was a great comedian.
Well, and the Game of Life, though,
yeah.
in the Barbara Marciniak books, that's
Yeah.
like she channels for the Pleiadians.
Mhm.
It's been around for, oh gosh, since the 90s.
Yeah, the
I
Bringers
guess.
of
Bringers
Dawn
of
and the
Dawn.
New Earth and stuff like that. Yeah.
But that's what they talk about. There's a whole chapter on like the Game of Life and
Mhm.
how we play the game is what matters. How we be present
Yeah.
is what matters.
Yeah. Yeah, and that being present is a quintessential key that unlocks all the doors. Being aligned with our heart, understanding our body, the information that our body actually holds. We are not in a meat sack. We are in a divine creation that literally holds creation in this particle bundle that light passes through, inhabits, and solidifies within, and turns into energy. You know, all the things that we, you know, eat, drink, and breathe. We're this walking, talking fusion reactor of divine spark, you know, and the feelings
Mhm.
that we have in our bodies are what are the clues for us, is what our information is. And, you know, you can keep bringing up the question as to
Yeah.
April, why we separate from source, and
Yeah.
we'll keep on diving back
Why?
in because it's all about refining the process of expression. The reason why we take this step as elements of creation and of the divine is to refine our understanding of ourselves, which is the defining human aspiration and quintessential journey. So the thing is that what we are going through as humans is exactly what creation and the universe is doing. And this also brings into play understanding the vaster concept of how the universe is alive and the cosmos is alive. And you actually have particle physicists who are beginning to go, yeah, the universe is sentient. It has an awareness. It responds.
Consciousness.
It has consciousness. It responds to things.
Mhm.
There's no doubt about it. It is literally, you know, thermodynamics in action in the 3D world.
I was
And-
just reading about that in another book, which is really good, about how everything is consciousness. Everything that holds us together, it's all consciousness. Everything. I'm not even going to do it justice because I just read it, but it was something that I really felt resonated. That everything that holds it together, it's all consciousness.
we are
It's not-
consciousness.
not
And the
separate.
question that she had is why the person or what when you're in now the realm that you're jumping into
Mhm.
is the reason that why the person is because this design
Mhm.
was able to hold that information, hold that light, hold that consciousness, this design versus a lizard or
Yep.
whatever.
Or
Exactly.
a rock.
Yeah.
Or a rock
Yeah.
or a fern, you know.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to
Actually-
be a fern. They
actually-
look comfy.
Liked there's something that Marla said, and something that I've thought about a lot too is like, and I've read it somewhere, can't remember where, but what I really liked was that we can choose when to come and go here.
Mhm.
And I know I'm not done. So I think that's something to remember is that I feel like we do choose. I don't think that it's always so black and white that or just the way we think of that.
Yeah.
How leaving and birth and incarnation. I
Mhm.
think there's so much more to it too that could be a whole other,
That's a whole other
thing,
conversation.
but
That is a whole other conversation.
that we could talk about. But yeah.
And yeah, it's just like, yeah, this embodiment holds a specific level of information, type of information, aspects of information, whatever you want to call it. That's why
Sometimes
I am
when I'm
who I am.
integrating, I'll tell him I think my body's too small. Because I'm really short. So sometimes I'm like, I think I'm too small. I'm like, I need more room in here.
Yeah. And you know, like that's those feelings of integration and processing are things that we don't talk a lot about, because we are caught in mental analysis of the ego, and we get away from actually listening to the body, because the body is our antenna. The body is our connection to source. Our body is the antenna that absorbs and receives the information, the energy, the frequency, the vibration of everything from the universe and our cosmos, our Christ self, our higher self, our I am presence, whatever words you want to use, the Godhead, the center of creation, creator. Our body is the antenna. This is why listening is so important. This is why understanding our emotions are so important, and why being present with ourselves and aligned with ourselves is so important, because our energy in motion is expressed through emotional content. And when we step back into observation, we step back into ourselves and are able to be in our hearts and present with our hearts, then we can listen with clarity. And clarity is the key. Then we understand all of the motivations, the origins of all the mechanisms that have created all of our responses and all of our conditioning and all of our patterns, all of our stories. They all have an origin point from before we were born. And the being born to parents means that we have further amplification, or we are born into an environment, a crucible, where we have the maximum potential to learn. And that's what our choice is. And sometimes learning is hard. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes, you've got the ups and downs. And our cultural frameworks and societies that we have are a reflection of the human evolution and the grander picture of all of these things. And, this is why there's no one way for everyone. Everyone has to come to their own journey themselves for themselves. And again, this is why being present is so important, because it is the one thing that will unlock everything and anything for everybody.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly and Kelly.
4 cents? 3 cents?
3.5.
3.5.
3.5. Penny jar is becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
2 years of Q&As. Penny jar is like inflating.
Gotta invest that.
I like the fact that you brought up emotion, because even Dr. Joe Dispenza says the thought sends the signal out, and the emotional field is what actually draws the experience. Like it pulls the experience into our present moment.
Yep.
So intention, Caesar and April talked about intention. So as long as we are, the emotional field is that of loving kindness, what Kelly said about presence. If we are experiencing great amounts of loving kindness, gratitude, compassion, empathy, then whatever we pull, when we send out that desire, that intention, and this is the creative principle that Eckhart talks about, the conscious manifestation. When the desire comes out, then that emotional field will bring in that experience of whatever we want to manifest. So the emotional field, being aware of the emotional field, is that clarity is needed, and only presence power can give us that clarity. The other part that, since I mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza, what he says is master your past, right? Because whatever we learn from our past, it turns into the wisdom. That's what the soul is making that imprint of that wisdom. If I am so self-aware of jealousy being a pattern in me, right? So my soul is healed of that pattern because I've dissolved it. Like what I did was I started this is like a decade back, I started noticing the pattern. So what I would do is I would, like, with my coworkers and everything, I started appreciating and like building them up. And if anything good happened to a coworker, I would actually feel the happiness for them, like as though it was given, like a recognition was given, an award was given, whatever was given. And I was a contractor, and there was a difference between employee and contractor. The employees were recognized officially, the contractors were not, even though we would have contributed to the success of the project. So there was a point in time when in this company, my manager actually gave me a pin. They were recognized. I didn't get the cash award, but the pin that he got, he gave it to me saying, you know, then you can know that you've healed that pattern, because I was so happy that they were recognized, right, for that project. But I was also an equal contributor to the success of the project. And sometime during group meditation, I'll tell you all what that project is, because it is a very famous project in this country. And so they were given pins, and he gave me the pin, and I've kept that pin with me. So just see, then the universe recognizes us, right? My manager gave me the pin, which would have been his memento of this project. Really, that had quite a significant implication for this country itself. So thank you for that, Kelly and Kelly. Marla, did you want to say something? Any last thoughts? I'm going to go to Ken and Caesar, and then we can wrap up.
Sure, real quick. This has been a wonderful process of evolution in me, this discussion. And I keep going back to my own purpose in my life. And what I see is that in this last quarter of my life, I have an opportunity with my great-grandchild. She is 6 months. I had her all morning. All I did with her was sit. I sat with her. I had no goals. I just was present. I was trying to just be present with this child, because that, I think, is how I can teach her presence, is to just, I'm going to be at least one person in her life who she can be present with, who is present with her, who accepts her no matter what she does, who does not criticize, who does not scold, who does not do all those bad mothering things that we all remember. I want to be that for her. And the only way I can do that is to be that for me. And I'm well on the way. I'm well on the way. And I had such a joyful morning with her, looking at the waves in the pond and the leaves on the tree and the little hummingbird that came to the feeder this morning. She saw that little hummingbird flit by, and she didn't move. She just stared. She is so innately curious, and she wants answers. She just moves her body, and she goes, oh, like that when something grabs her attention. And it made me wonder whether that is our impulse, curiosity, if that is our charge. We're just so innately curious. Now, I've seen that in her since the day she was born. That's all. That's all. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Marla. Ken, did you want to say something?
Just briefly, yes. I just really acknowledging the expansion of thought, and then just reaching higher elevations of consciousness. And I just love how everybody have their own little nuggets that are being added to what everybody's being said. And it's just so fulfilling to hear different people say things. And I'm noticing in myself where I'm something really big is I'm biting my tongue on things that I normally would say before in my life, where now I'm like, no, just listen and allow others to express themselves in their words. And it's helping me to realize how interconnected we all are. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
Thank you so much, Ken. Caesar, you want to wrap this up? Any last thoughts?
Sure. April and Kelly both mentioned why the separation. There is no separation. We are as much the part of Source today as we ever were. Kelly shaking his head. We get in our own way. I think we're our biggest obstacles in our own lives, at every turn, at every path, at every speed bump. There's an old saying, get out of your way, get out of your own way. I found that to be true. I found myself in a deep discussion about that this morning with a couple friends. And it's always our own doings. I mean, we are responsible for everything that shows up in our lives wholeheartedly. Sometimes people say, you think I chose this to happen? I just, some people just don't understand it. They won't understand it. Well, I want to say, well, of course you did. You just wasn't here when you did it. I know you guys understand that. That's a tough one to get by certain people. Why would I choose that? Some people say, because you can handle it. And there was something you were supposed to learn because of it. And maybe it's got everything to do with that karma that you were speaking of, in a sense. So, yeah, we are, let's just remember we're vibrational beings. And we are as much of it part of Source today. We are the extension of Source. And just keep that in mind, because all things are possible. Wasn't some of the things, some of the time is all things are possible. So I'll just end it there. And I'm grateful to be a part of this. I learned so much week in and week out. I leave here just like laughing. It brings me to tears, just out of joy, because I'm so grateful for you guys. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Caesar. And thank you so much, everyone. Infinite gratitude. This was an incredibly amazing session. So many blessings, much love. Have a terrific week.
Yes.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.